All right, I'm just gonna get right straight to the report. I'm not gonna go any introductions. Got a lot of stories I want to talk about, and being that something just broke out, like I said earlier, I just want to get right straight to it. I'm gonna follow up with another story that is connected to what I'm saying because they both go hand in hand, especially those who've been following the events that's going on in Florida. Like I said earlier in my update video, I was going to talk about this in further details, but the Florida man who have killed a black teenager over loud music hasn't been convicted of multiple counts of second degree murder as well as shooting on a vehicle. Now, I'm going to be very straightforward here about my feelings towards them. I'm very, very mixed on what the jury have convicted them on and what they didn't convict them on. Like I said earlier in my first video, I have said that it was kind of odd that they didn't come with a decision on the first degree murder, but they did get them on second degree murder as well as possessing a gun and shooting in a vehicle. And I'm gonna read the whole article, and then I'm gonna talk about this in full and give you my full feeling as to why I have a very mixed feeling of it. But overall, is that he did get convicted as well as he should, because let's be honest, he took a life over something that is not really important, not really that serious. And when you really look at it, is if he was just left alone and let these guys drive off, he wouldn't be in the predicament he's in right now. After more than 30 hours, is what the article said, courtesy of um, of the Huffington Post by Derek Kenner. He was the one who posted this. I will leave the link again to this article as well as other multiple articles, pretty much backing up what the news has been saying. But in Jacksonville, Florida, a 47-year-old software developer was convicted Saturday of attempted murder for shooting into a car full of teenagers after an argument over what he called thug music. But juries couldn't agree on the most serious charge of first degree murder. And again, I'm going to talk about this even as this story goes along. After more than 30 hours of jury deliberation over 4 days, the material was the a mistrial was declared on the murder charge that Michael Dunn faced in the fatal shooting of one of the black teens. And 12 jurors found him guilty of three of attempted second degree murder and a count of firing into an occupied car. So this is why I'm a very big mix on this whole situation. He was convicted of attempted murder as well as firing under a occupied vehicle. Now, Dunn was charged with a fatally shooting 17-year-old Jordan Davis of Malachi, Georgia, I believe, in 2012 after an argument over loud music coming from a parked SUV occupied by Davis and his three friends outside the Jacksonville convenience store. Dunn, who is white, has described the music as um, to his fiancee as thug music. Interesting. Dunn showed no emotion as the verdict was read. A sentencing date will be set at the hearing next month. Each attempt second degree murder charge carries a maximum sentence of 30 years in prison. Now I'm going to stop here for 1 second because it says the max. Doesn't mean he's going to get the max. It means he can get the maximum of no more than 30 years for each charge, while the fourth charge carry a maximum of 15 years. So again, this is what the max is. It may be possible he may not be getting the max. David's parents each left the courtroom in tears, and afterwards his mother, Lucas Macbeth, expressed gratitude for the verdict. So Sunday would have been the teen's 19th birthday. We are grateful for the charges that has been brought against him, she said. Of Dunn, we are grateful for the truth. We are grateful that the jury was able to understand the common sense of it all. The article also says that on Dunn's potentially legal sentence, Davis' father Ron said he's going to learn that he must be remorseful for the killing of my son. That is not just another day at the office. Now, the state attorney general have already said that the office plans to retrial Dunn for on a first-degree murder charge, and she hopes juries will come forward and tell prosecutors where questions where they question their case. Juries declined to talk to the media, however. Can't really say I blame them. Um, Earlier in the day, the panel said that the note to the judge Russell Harley that they were having trouble reaching an argument on the murder charges. He asked them to continue their work, and they went back to deliberate the room 2 more hours. They never seen a case where deliberation has gone on for the length of time. She said after the verdict, they embraced their civic duties and they are to be commended for that. Dunn claimed he acted in self-defense, testified that he thought he saw a firearm pointed at him from the SWV, and Davis yelled insulted at him. Davis yelled insults at him, and the argument escalated. However, no weapons was found. And again, I have to stress that this is my biggest gripe about this whole thing. Okay, I I'm very very mixed on the they couldn't find first degree murder on this case. Granted, they did convict him on the other charges, but the fact that they didn't convict him, couldn't find any grounds on this charge, makes me wonder about the wording and the language, as well as what exactly the prosecutor had presented to them not to debate the first degree murder. Granted, he got charges with attempted second degree murder, but then again, it makes me wonder how is it attempted murder when one of the victim is dead? There's a body involved, and he was responsible for that body. So this is the thing I'm very, very concerned about, and it makes me wonder if they are planning a retrial, which it does sound like they want to do. Is this going to continue being the same trend again? Um, to me is just is a weird matter on a thing, and that's the thing that it really bothers me about this is that the whole entire thing just sounds strange to me. It just sounds like there's something I'm not reading into. Now, if anybody out there who is watching this video who knows more about law than I do, or have a more grip of what's actually been going on in terms of evidence and everything else, please feel free to put it on the comment section. But I find this very difficult to believe that he was charged with attempted, even though we already know that there was somebody dead from his own actions. Um, and it really goes back to the second article that's being posted here about how the NRA, our friends over there, wants to actually expand Stand Your Ground, which I'm hoping they don't do. And the reason is that they're not even strengthening Stand Your Ground in Florida on this situation. And we've seen, not just on this case, but other cases that I have actually covered, that the news actually covered, how too broad Stand Your Ground is, and how it got to the point where even the police have their hands tied on the whole situation. And this is the thing that really bothers me with this whole case. Um, I honestly don't know what the prosecution have done in terms of getting things, in terms of actually representing uh, the case to the jury. I don't know what was being said back and forth, what their argument was, but it's very clear that there is actually something wrong where we have where they actually could not come up with a decision. Um, and again, it makes me very worried, especially when it comes to Florida. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff in Florida that I'm not really feeling, and mostly within the legal department, that makes me wonder what was it um, that they seen that wasn't really a count for murder, but second degree. Now, granted, it ain't like this guy's going to get off scot free. He is facing very serious charges, and most likely he's going to get something. I seriously doubt he's going to get parole, and I seriously doubt that he's not going to serve a small, lengthy time. But being the fact that with the way Stand Your Ground is and with the way things have been going, it does worry that he might get a slap in the wrist, which I'm hoping that does not happen. Because here's my beef here. Stand your ground should be something where you have absolutely no choice but to use force. He did not have a reason to go against this group of teens. Were the teens being disrespectful playing loud music? I'm not saying they wasn't. All right, but the fact is, there was no reason for him to confront them. They were in a car. They was waiting for a red light. All he needed to do was just wait for the light to change and drive off. And that's the big issue here with the stand your ground. It seems like it gives people justification to embrace confrontation without actually thinking first of what can actually happen in this confrontation. This is not a third time I've been hearing this. One, George Zimmerman. The second one, this case with the loud music. The third one, most recent one, the movie theater. All situations here could have easily been avoided, and it wasn't avoided because again they had this idea because I got a gun, I can confront a matter and not have to worry about it because if they get out of line, I can just use stand your ground and shoot without thinking. This is this really bothers me, and to me, if the officials in Florida think it's going to go away, I got news for you. They're dead wrong because again, we're dealing with a situation where a lot of lawmakers are trying to use this as a stomping ground to expand stand your ground laws without actually putting any kind of restrictions in play. And let me go right straight to what I mean by here. What I mean by it. I'm going to go right to the article that pretty much solidifies what I'm saying here. The article pretty much says in the detail here that the NRA is looking to do a warning shot law, a new bill that pretty much goes as following. The bill is pretty much saying that you can point a gun, giving the person a warning, or fire a warning shot in the air, indicating that hey, you need to back off, or I'm going to use deadly force. Now, I'm not for this bill for a lot of reasons because one, it doesn't solve the overall problem, which is you still have not deal with the simple fact is that it doesn't stop people from getting into a conflict. All right, it doesn't make people think don't engage in the conflict unless these people come to you and you feel threatened by the situation where you really do feel threatened and you have no choice but to use deadly force. It doesn't solve that. And two, the last thing I want to hear is somebody shooting a gun in the air because guess what? That bullet got to come down somewhere and it most likely hit an innocent civilian. This has actually happened. There's actually states who have actually passed laws making it felony for firing a warning shot in the air because they actually seen what happens when that bullet comes down. There was actually fatalities on this, even in places where people shoot their guns in the air to celebrate like a New Year's or a party. That bullet got to land, and that's one of the reasons why they have these laws in play. I don't know, but it's just so much that I can take from these guys who want to loosen laws and make it more like a wild wild west state, a vigilante state. That let me just read the article here. Lawmakers are aiming to expand Florida stand your ground law with the help of top NRA lobbyists. Unbelievable. Basically, what they're saying is that they report that the SB 448, which would protect someone who has fired a warning shot or waved a gun when they feel threatened, was written by Martin Hammer, a former NRA president. The bill would amend the current law, which permits residents to use deadly force under certain circumstances to allow the threatening use of force. Gun owners couldn't be arrested for brandishing a gun or firing a warning shot. The legislation could also lead to more premises opening carrying guns or lighter requirements for gun licenses. And this is what this all comes down to, guys. Lawmaker, the NRA really, and I'm going to be straight up right now, whether you're a pro-gun or anti-gun, the NRA doesn't care. As long as they make their money, they can pass any law that will help them do that. This has nothing to do with safety. There's nothing to do with with the amendment rights. Everybody want to keep flashing about this. It's about the NRA making this, and they will pass any law that will help to make this. If you think they're sympathetic of what happened to people's lives when it comes to gun violence in this country, you're wrong. For them, that's money for them. This law is nothing more than to help push that. If passed, the SB 448 would apply immunity provisions that relates to the use of force to threaten or to the threatened use of force, meaning that a gun owner wouldn't be subject to a 10 to 20 life law mandated an automatic 10-year sentence for anyone convicted of flashing using a gun in a commission of a felony. A 10 to 20 life law was passed in 1999. Ironically, Gregory noted that the NRA supported that bill at the time. See, that's amazing, isn't it? Amazing how they just sell it and do a bait and switch. The legislator was partially inspired by the care of Mr. Alexandra, the Jacksonville woman was sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2012 after firing a gun near her estranged husband during an argument 2 years before. Alexandra was scheduled to have a new trial this year after the original conviction was thrown out by the appeals court. Now, in case you're wondering what this is all about, and I'm glad they brought this up in this article because this is one of the main things that drove the NRA to do this. This woman, and by the way, a lot of people give me articles about this woman, and I'll get to that in a second, but this woman that fired a warning shot in the garage. She was in a relationship, a very abusive relationship, and in the end, it's gotten to the point where it was so bad that she ended up firing a warning shot. She got 20 years in prison for that. Now, a lot of people have given me different articles, have given me follow-up videos expressing why she have gotten that sentence. However, this thing that still bothers me is that under the stand your ground law, she was allowed to use deadly force. However, this was not the case, and it got a lot of people scratching and said, "How come when she used a warning shot, basically warning that she had a gun, that she got sentenced more, and when somebody else who actually fired even though he was aggressor, actually got off?" A lot of people have said a lot of stuff was going on. I did read on there, and I do understand what a lot of people will say wasn't that sympathetic on it. But the point being is that, in the case that what she have done, it still should have been stand your ground, and it wasn't. So this is one of the reasons why we have this situation now to pretty much even the playing field on it, if you will. But still, the thing is not reaching the situation where the law is too loose and it needs to be tightened. And just for the record here, Florida is not the only state who has stand your ground. There's other states, including Texas, that have stand your ground laws. But you don't hear too many stuff like this in other states because a lot of states have restrictions. You just can't go around and pick a fight and then pull out a gun saying I'm going to stand my ground. It doesn't work that way. If that was the case, the guy from Texas would have got off. He's serving 20 years of life because he thought it was a good idea to have a camcorder, knock on someone's door, basically be an aggressor against someone else's house because they're having a party for a family member, and as a result, he ended up putting himself in a situation where he pulled out his gun and ended up firing at someone because someone attacked him from behind because he had the gun. Now, he thought that the video was going to get him off. It actually helped him convict him. There you go. I'll leave a link below with this report, but like I said before, if you're gonna put any added situation here, please think about this situation, because here's the thing: brandishing a gun, saying I'm giving you a warning. If I'm the opposite of the situation, I consider that a dangerous threat to myself. And you know what? Who to say that person will pull a gun on him and shoot him because to him his life is being threatened? See, nobody's taking account of that piece. No one's taking account of firing a warning shot, which, by the way, again, I have to say, could land on an innocent bystander walking down the street because that bullet had to land on top of his head. Mind you, other states have felonies against that. So again, this is the NRA making things worse. And for the record, and I think I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, I'm not anti-guns. I understand why people have it in their home. I understand why people have it to protect themselves. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, I understand in certain scenarios people have a right to have a gun, but I also feel that people should be responsible for their guns. And I also feel that people shouldn't be going around picking fights and then brandishing their guns when they themselves, but they're clear aggressor. And as far as this guy is concerned, no, I don't feel sorry for him. I feel he's guilty, and even deep down, he knows he's guilty. Because if he felt he was standing his ground, the one thing people need to ask themselves: how come he fired 20 shots from the van and left the scene of the crime? That's the one thing I think people need to remind themselves. He left. They found him 20 miles from the scene of what happened when the incident happened. Same thing going with the movie theater guy. That ex-cop who basically took it upon himself to confront a guy over texting in the movie theater. After he done told the ushers what was going on, he still went back there to confront the guy, and it ended up into a heated argument, which resulted in him using his gun and shooting not only the wife in the hand, but killing the husband as well. And what did he do after that? He sat down and did nothing. Didn't call the police, didn't call an ambulance, he did nothing. We can't have vigilante justice running amok. We cannot. And the stand your ground laws in Florida has really done something that it should never have done. Taken away from what the police are supposed to do. Serve and protect. I'd like to hear your opinion on this matter. I really would. But I am going to move on now. And I'm going to move on to some other stories. This one has been hitting the waves for a week now. If you guys have been keeping an eye on, at least on international news, especially in Danish, there's been a huge backlash over what a zoo in Danish have done to a giraffe. The story, I've gotten bits and pieces as the days go on, but apparently the zoo thought it was a good idea to kill a giraffe, slaughter her in front of children, and feed the carcass to the lions. This sparked a very serious backlash to the point where the zookeepers were getting death threats as well as other things, which scratched my head. Apparently, there was another concern about another giraffe named, I believe, Marcus. Yes, Marcus. And needless to say, after the incident that happened in the other zoo, they have decided not to do what that zoo did. Basically, the article said no plans to kill a second giraffe named Marcus in the Danish zoo. The decision by Comprehend Zoo in Denmark to kill one of his giraffes last weekend sparked anguish. The news 4 days later that the second giraffe might follow the suit prompted howls of outrage. But the zoo has now said that those fears are groundless. In a statement on its official Facebook page under the headline "Problem Solved," said that the giraffe future was assured. The zoo said Thursday it might also have to euthanize one of its male giraffes, which consequently shared the name Marcus with a giraffe that was killed. If a female was brought into breed, but it now says that the European Association of Zoos and Culture, a body grievance 345 institution, has no plans to send a female anytime soon. As a result, the zoo said it would, of course, kept both our giraffes, and we have stated all along there is no plans, and there has never been a plan to neither move or euthanize any of the giraffes. Now, I find this story a little fishy because here's the thing: if this thing wasn't blown up the way it did, would you think they'd be saying this now? I seriously doubt it. I think there's nothing but a pure relation move this whole thing with the giraffe, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was not thrilled with what they did, but I got a different reason for it, and I'll explain later. What they did right there really sparked anger from all across the country, even from zoos in the United States and in Canada, have voiced their disdain for what they have done. When I heard the news about this, the first thing that came in my circuit board was the reason why uh, they killed this giraffe, which was very young. It was still a baby, very healthy. He wasn't sick. He wasn't old. He wasn't past his prime. Was because he wasn't wanted, and that raises a lot of questions. I mean, what do you mean he wasn't wanted? How is that possible? I mean, this is a zoo. One of the things, one of the main purpose of a zoo is to care for these unique animals. How are they not wanted? It doesn't even make any sense. And then after doing a little bit of net surfing, it came to be more and more of we didn't want any inbreeding, so that's why they gotten rid of them, which still didn't make any sense to me, unless they really didn't have no room. This led to a lot of petitions to save the giraffe. Led to a lot of people wanting to even take the giraffe in their zoo. There were actually offers to keep this giraffe alive by putting him in their zoo, and they can inbreed from there. And that's when I got a lot of suspicious because they actually turned it down and killed the giraffe anyway. So I'm like, wait a minute, if there were actual another zoo that was willing to take him in, what was the reason why you couldn't do that? Unless you had to fork in the bill and you couldn't afford it to transfer them to one zoo to another, which they never really said, there was really no reason why it wasn't a bad idea. And to me, it drew my suspicion as to whether they just wanted to kill them anyway, regardless of the reason. And they just said inbreeding was one of them. Um, it's just it's very weird how they handle it. And to me, the reason why I'm against it is because when I think about these places, these zoos, and I've seen the history. If in New York City, the zoos in New York, at least in the past, was not good. Prospect Park Zoo was still probably one of the greatest things, greatest nightmares you can probably ever get because uh, there was a lot of incident that happened, even deaths, and how they mistreated those animals in the old days, where they actually closed the zoo down. Now that's been reopened, but it's a lot smaller and more organized, and you got more professional people working there. But back in the days, in the 80s, it was really not well kept. More cages. The animal was not really kept up to conditions. And after the death of a kid who snuck into one of the cages, they just closed the whole thing down. Um, Same thing goes with a lot of other zoos areas that have that same issue, but that was the main problem. So I can see how this doesn't really shock me as much as it probably would have if I'm just hearing it for the very first time and I'm a zoo animal. I haven't seen it with my own eyes how some of these zoos take care of it. The reason why it's a big deal because many people see these zoos and they're supposed to be a safe haven for these animals. They're there on captivities, and the least they can do is try to make it as much comfortable for these animals as well. If you go to the Bronx Zoo, it's almost like going to a jungle almost. They really did a great job of mimicking the environment of these creatures. So hearing what I heard from the reports and seeing the video offhand, it really is bothersome that they just took this animal, this young creature, and just ignored it like nothing. Again, if again, many people say, well, that's the way of life, and if they was in the wild kingdom, um, this would have probably happened anyway because the land would have chewed them up. That's fine, but this ain't the wild kingdom. This is a zoo. This is a controlled environment. With that being said, I'm not gonna give the animal rights groups any slack either because some of them came out the very wrong way and came out really nasty in terms of how they dealt with this. And I'm talking about the death threats, but more importantly, one of the threats that threatened to burn the zoo down. So let me get this straight. Your response from a zoo who killed a young zebra is to burn the whole entire zoo, killing innocent animals in the process. Come on, guys, wake up. That don't make any sense whatsoever. You just defeated the purpose of the situation. You really did. Come on now. Now, it says here, and then one of the zoos said the reported that the threat to his Marcus have been based on a hypocritical situation which now seems to be eliminated. The suggestion that the second Marcus might be euthanized prompted a slew of angry comments on the zoo's Facebook page. A petition on the website charge.org gathered more than 10,000 signatures. We are begging the zoo, please, being a new trend by showing that there are more compassionate alternatives to surplus animals and animals deemed not fit to breed within your zoo. It's another is the author said. So, okay. And again, this is going back to the backlash what's happened, and to me, this is going to raise a lot of questions. A lot of zoos, that is outside of Danish, has not been happy about it. A lot of people who are animal lovers not happy about it. Again, I'm also not happy with some of these activists who thought it was a good idea to make death threats and just saying they're going to destroy the zoo entirely. To me, that's just you just defeat the purpose, and it makes you look like a bunch of fools. I'm just keeping it real. I will say one thing though, and this is something I think people need to understand straight up when it comes to something outside of our district or outside of our country. We don't know the laws in Danish. We don't know how they treat animals there. Just because we have specific animal rights laws in the United States and in Canada doesn't mean that that Denmark have that same amendment. They may be different, and we need to understand that before going in and making comments. In other words, we need to know what their rights on what animal rights laws they have there before we actually point all the blame on the zoo. For all we know, to them this is perfectly normal. All right. Keep in mind they showed a demonstration to a bunch of children. Right? And as crazy and as outrageous as it may seem to the government of that country, this is normal to them. But I do have a feeling that a zoo should be a place where these animals who are in captivity should have lived a more comfortable life. Now, if that zoo had a disease and he was dying, then they had to make the call. But that was a healthy giraffe, and the excuse they're giving, I'm not really buying. I'll leave it up to you guys. I want to hear your opinion on this matter. But, yeah, that is kind of messed up. I want to talk about this before I get into my New York topics here, but this is something that I find disgusting. This was done by the Huffington Post, and needless to say, I'm going to read the article, but it involves a man named Matthew Roberts who did a cowardly act by attacking a disabled Army veteran in a Cleveland bus. A disabled Army veteran said he was attacked by a group of teens in downtown Cleveland. Matthew Robinson told WOIO that he was riding the bus on February 7 when 6 to 8 teenagers surrounding him and beat him. What were they saying was kick the boy out, white boy, crackers. They were saying knock the white boy out. Robinson told the situation. Told the station, I'm sorry. He said the teens robbed him and recorded a video of the attack as they beat him. They dispatched when the police arrived on the scene. The police later apprehend two men in their late teens, Kenneth Matthew and Ronald Reed Williams, and a 16-year-old girl who had footage of the alleged attack on her phone, according to CBS Cleveland. WOIO report that the punks, and rightfully so, have recently attacked other people in the public square area of Cleveland, and that the time a heavy police presence was developed to disperse violent mobs there. Robinson said he is concerned by the violence. Your mother and or sister could be on the bus, and the same thing could happen to them, Robinson said. There will be a link on this article here. Plain and simple. They recorded it. They was gonna put it on YouTube or on Facebook. And for they this is, you know, I don't even have any words for this. I mean, this is what the youth has become these days. Record their stupidity on a social network. This is just absolutely disgusting. And they ought to go hit it right in there. They're a bunch of punks. You attack a disabled man. You was actually caught doing this. You was suspected of doing other attacks. And for what? So you can record it so you can watch it later on your Facebook page, on your cell phone? I tell you right now, and it wouldn't surprise me if it don't. I won't be surprised that every attack they have done in the last few weeks, or even longer, is on that cell phone. Because that's how stupid these teenagers are. I mean, what is the matter with the youth today? Making racist remarks, beating up someone for no reason, and for what? Well, I hope it's worth it because you guys looking at a long time in prison. You know, I don't feel sorry for you. You're gonna make stupid stuff like that. I honestly don't have nothing else to say except wow. People do anything just to put themselves on video. Honestly. All right. Two stories I want to talk about here. I might as well get this one off the way because I'm not going to go too much time about this involving Al Roker and my mayor of New York City. Apparently, de Blasio has been feeling the heat, and I'm going to say right now, undeservingly, for his decision to keep the school open during Thursday's blizzard. Now, I'm going to say straight up, I don't think he made the wrong decision. Um, at all. I think he made the call based on what the news forecasters were saying. And from what the news forecaster was reporting about, it's going to stop doing before it hits 10 o'clock. And it pretty much will turn to rain and then back as snow later tonight. He made the call to keep the school open. Now, would I have been mad about him if he kept the school closed? The answer is no. Um, but at the same time, I wasn't mad at him when he opened the school. And I came to the conclusion after hearing the news and hearing a lot of radio talk shows talking about this. I felt that no matter what he have done, he would have been in a no-win situation regardless. He would have been hearing it from the parents who felt that keeping the school closed was putting a burden on them because they're going to keep them away from their job, which a lot of jobs were open. And he would hear it from the people who wanted the school closed because they said it's too dangerous for the kids to go walking to school as well waiting for the bus. So he was messed up either way. Al Roker didn't make anything any different because he criticized him on Twitter about the situation. He basically slammed him on Twitter about his decision to actually keep the schools open. Now, about a few hours later, well, about a day later, he actually apologized for it. And I'm going to read the article right here about what he said. Al Roker said Friday that he was sorry for making a blow in the line comment about New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Roker De Blasio hit out at de Blasio on Twitter Thursday for the mayor's decision to keep the New York public schools open during the snowstorm. To today, to today's show, meteorologists called out de Blasio for putting kids' safety at risk and predicting a long-range de Blasio forecast one term on Friday today. Uh, one term on Fridays. Today, Roker spoke out from Snooki and from the Olympics, that's where he's at, and insisted that the New York schools should have been closed. I understand one of the reasons to keep the schools open is because a lot of kids count on meals they get at school. I understand that, but it's about safety. He begins safety first, and children that children's that's what we are talking about. Parents can afford to stay home. I get that too, but again, what's more difficult to know your kids is going to stay home, or all of a sudden figure out how to get home when they let them out early, which it has happened in some cases. Now, some cases being most daycares was either closed in New York or they let or had a half a day because of the severity of the snowstorm and because the buses may not get there on the time that they're supposed to get there. So a lot of kids came home early. Keep in mind that some parents was complaining about that anyway. So, like I said, it's a no-win situation with this. And that's the problem I have with this. What the tweet is that there were people on radio stations urging the mayor not to close the schools. They specifically said that it's tough enough that we have to take another day off from work if that happens. And that was the main thing. It's also another thing is that we're embracing another week long vacation, which is the President's Day vacation, where it's like the break that we have before the next break, which is Easter. So having those kids off, knowing they're gonna have another week off, is another situation that a lot of people are talking about. So there is a whole lot of stuff that was going on. Plus, add the fact they missed already a couple school days as it is from the storms that we had this past month. So it's to me, he's damn if you damn if he don't. I think he did the right thing. I think he listened to what the storm says. The anchor weather said it was supposed to be long, but which it wasn't because the storm stopped and it wasn't snowing or raining for a while. At least where I was. The only thing I was concerned about, and I'm being honest with you, is the fact is that the ground it was horrible. In some areas, you didn't know where the street was from the sidewalk. That's how bad it was, and that's actually resulted in the death of a woman who was happened to be pregnant. Now they managed to save the baby, but the woman did pass on. So that was my major concern. So in safety wise, I can understand where that could be an issue, but like I said, from what the news anchors, the meteorologists were saying on the news is it was going to start tonight. It snowed all night, but it was going to stop at doing before 10 o'clock, which it did. So he went by what they were saying. All right, so I'm just keeping that real. I think he was in a no-win situation. He was not going to satisfy anyone with his decision. Now he added, I will say the one tweet I do regret is in the heart. I have very passionate about the weather. I made a prediction that would be only one term of his administration. I apologize for that. That was a little below the line, but everything else I still stand by, including the fact that the National Weather Service did forecast that on Wednesday. The thing is that most of the weather people also predicted that weather was going to change from snow to rain, which it did, or it didn't rain at all. Because the snow stops, nothing else happened. I'm looking outside. I said, well, I just lost a day's work for pretty much almost nothing, because that's what happened. But again, I just feel like this: he's damned if he do, he's damned if he don't. I think he made the call, and I think for one reason, I don't think it's a bad call. Now, granted, if parents have that decision to bring their kid to school or not, if they choose that it was too dangerous, keep them home. That's all I gotta say. He's not forcing anybody. Keep it home. Keep them home. Daycare gave that option. Daycare is not mandatory. They call them and say, look, we're not gonna don't plan to bring your kid in because it's not worth it. And some let them out early. So, but most majority didn't let it out early. And here's the thing I want to keep that in mind because I actually live in this city. Even Al Roker knows this. When Giuliani was mayor of the city, it was 1 year we had not one, not two, not three, but almost 9 snowstorms that year. You know how many times he let people off from school? None. Not a damn one. As a teenager growing up with my fair peers, we were mad at him for that because we were like, damn, we can't get one snow day. But he didn't do it. He decided, no, you're gonna go to school. I don't care if it's 10 inches out there. You're going to school. If the buses are running, you're going to school. Now, how many people went to school after doing the snowstorm? Not many. I remember one time it was like almost half empty in the school, but the school was open, and those who went, and those who didn't, well, they didn't. So that's your option there, guys. All right, I'm gonna talk about this Puerto Rican situation here, the Puerto Rican Day Parade leadership. Uh, this is also another cover story I'm talking about New York, but it's actually a very important one. Um, the leadership has been axed. Now, the reason why it's been axed is go by the following. But here's I'm gonna read the article, then I'm gonna get my feeling about it. The Attorney General will announce Thursday that he is ousting more than half of the leadership in the National Puerto Rican Day Parade Incorporated for financial mismanagement and the restitution and the re, uh, restitution it brought on at this board of directors. Sorry about that, guys. The shakeup of the non-for-profit group, sponsored for decades of one of the country's best-known ethnic parades, following a 9-month probe in which Sunderman found the event's long-term private fund raising. Carol Vasquez and his GLOS Corp. Um, sumpered off more than $1.4 million in corporate donations since 2008, largely because of lack of oversight by the parade committee directors. Why am I surprised? In the article, it also says that the stunning announcement comes just 4 months before this year's annual parade in June cast a cloud over the major snowcast of Latino ethnic parade, but it was welcomed by the critics who have long sought to reform the parade management. And that's pretty much all it says here. They also leave two links here. One is from the Daily News version, and another one from the Huffington Post. I'll leave both of them for you guys can read. Um, it doesn't surprise me, guys. It doesn't surprise me at all. And again, there's a key word here: lack of oversight. Um, this is something that I think I made no case about it. When you don't monitor what's going on in the company, and they know you're not monitoring them, you know you're not looking over their shoulder to make sure they see what they're doing and held them accountable for, they're gonna run amok. All right, money can do something to people, especially those who once honest. But then that money comes in, and once they say I can do this, it's not gonna be a big deal. But then it leads to something else more and more, and the next thing you know, they're in head off their heels in terms of corruption. And this is now different, especially when the directors seem to be turning a blind eye. Um, Now, for the record, I don't think it's gonna mess with the parade. Okay, this is one of the biggest parades in New York. It's right up there with St. Patrick's, which is the mega parade um, of this city. There's St. Patrick's, there's Thanksgiving, and then there's Christmas. And Puerto Rican Day Parade stands as one of the top dogs here. It's still going to be celebrated. There's still going to be a lot coming out showing their pride, and that's not going to change. Does this cast an overshadow in terms of leadership? Yes. Um, this is something that is going to cast a very serious shadow over them, and it can also hurt them for future funding. So keep in mind, it's a non-for-profit group, so they're not supposed to make money off of this. So if those people who once give them money to fund this parade all of a sudden says, you know what, we can't trust you enough to fund it, then you know what, it's going to come back to haunt them because there's the one fund that they can't afford to lose. Unless they have somebody coming in to replace that, that could be a huge blow towards financing this parade, which has been one of the major factors in making sure this parade keep running the way it is. But again, the steps have been made and the shakeup has been done. Now you got to make sure you get the people who are supposed to do their job and make sure there's no more corruption like this, so that way it won't cloud them again. Um, and for most people who has posted their feelings on this, they uh, felt that it was about time because they need some kind of reform by this. So that tells you that a lot of people who was close to what was going on feel that hey, this thing was going on for a while. It's time for a change. and change it is. So I'm gonna leave a link. I'll let you guys talk about this. Give me your um, feelings on this. I'm head to one last story of the day. This is the long story I'm gonna end with, and it's a very nice one. I normally try to end with a good news or weird news. This is the news that I wanted to talk about. It's a welcoming news. It's a news that I felt that needed to be brought up. So here we go. You guys like this? A high school senior class crowns two students with autism homecoming king and queen. I I actually like this story because, like I said, we heard a lot of stories about how people who autism are treated very poorly. Um, People consider it not as much of a disease, but more of a behavior problem that they blame on the parents, and they felt they need to grow up. They really are not educated in terms of how this is how it has affected the family as well, the people who's going through this. And so I'm hearing a story like this. It really brings, yeah, this brings a smile on my face because uh, how good the story is. It says whether it's singing a song or giving out hugs, Seth Knox and Kelsey Rosa always knew how to brighten their peers' day, and the senior class at Ty West High School in Lexington, Indiana, found a way to repay them, according to Fox 59. Knox and Rosa, who's both had autism, were excited to be chosen as two of the 16 students on the homecoming court, but it didn't stop there. During the halftime show at their school homecoming basketball game on February 7th, the pair was crowned homecoming king and queen. For the group of kids to accept the special need kids, Roland's mom said on Fox 59, "You can't put into words what that means as a parent." This is a breath of fresh air. I can't express my my disdain for certain people who continue to not understand what autism is, or what people who deals or people as well as parents dealing with special needs does to a family members. A lot of people just simply don't understand or choose not to understand, and as a result, we hear all sorts of horrible stories of bullying, not just from the students, but from the people who are supposed to protect them, and that's the teachers and even some of the authorities who don't truly understand um, how to deal with this or choose not to deal with it because they just not educated enough to deal with it. So hearing this story, and I'm gonna leave a link to the story because I think everybody should read it. It really shows the good in the people. It really gives me hope that there are some people who understand it, and kudos for Tri West High School for doing that. It really shows that hey, there are some people who get it. There are people who understand that these are bright people, smart people, and it really is a great story. It's a great story to end the What's News after all the other stuff I've been talking about. Um, and again, my hats off to the school, and definitely my hats off to Cox and Rosa. So I hope I said that name right. I'm praying, and as well as the 16 students who was also nominated. So again, good news for a change, especially with the topic at hand. That's it for the now, guys. That's all the topics I have. Pretty much a long one today, but I didn't want to do a two-parter. I just want to get all the stories out. But as always, you guys can comment below. You guys can talk about what I just said. Give me your opinion on it. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Again, I will be keeping an eye on the Florida situation because it's very important. And the reason why it's very important is because, again, it's very clear what the NRA is trying to do. They're using Florida as an experiment place to pass these kind of bills. And you better believe when one state does something, a lot of states follow. That's always been the trend. So I'm going to keep an eye on what new standards they're going to do for stand your ground. I'm also going to keep an eye on both cases, the movie theater incident that happened in Florida, as well as the conviction the sentencing proceedings that's going on with this loud music situation. But either way you see it, it is very, very important that I follow through with what's going on. But I'd also like to hear your opinion on this, guys. There's the comment section. Until then, J77 saying take care, be safe. I'll talk to you soon.